Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Romali here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for June 8th, 2022, occurred on 2:10 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including the potential for a new tropical cyclone to be forming in the East Pacific Basin and what implications that could have on the Atlantic side of everything, and just how busy could the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season be? Well, we'll be talking about that later today. So let's go ahead and jump straight into everything, taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon. We notice that we don't have much going on right now. It is fairly inactive. That is certainly some good news. We do have a tropical wave here that is midway through the MDR at this point. This will be moving towards the east over the next several days. Again, not really expected to develop. We have a lot of dry Saharan air out in this region, a lot of strong upper level winds. So it's still very unfavorable as we would expect for early June. But we do have an area of possible development in the East Pacific Basin that we do have to talk about because this will be pretty close to land, and there could be some land concern as we progress over the next week to 10 days or so. So like I said, in the Atlantic Basin, everything is quiet for right now. There is nothing expected over the next 5 days. And in the East Pacific Basin, this is our area of possible development that we're kind of looking at here. So we do have a moderate risk for development. This is a 50% chance of development over the next 5 days. And this will probably be increased to a high risk of development. But right now, again, you can see the proximity of land. This is pretty close here to portions of coastal Mexico on the East Pacific side of everything. And this is going to matter because, again, the formation area we can see, this isn't really expected to move much over the next several days. And in fact, this could actually drift northward by quite a bit, and we could start to have areas that were impacted by Agatha re-impacted once again by what will be soon to be Invest Area 92E. So we notice that over here in the East Pacific Basin, this is where we have most of the convection and the concentrated area of showers and thunderstorms. And so this is the area that we typically would be watching for development. We notice that there's nothing out here on the Atlantic side of everything, and most of everything is concentrated over here. And this area of convection over here is where we're going to be looking, this area of disturbance right here. And again, this isn't going to be moving much over the next several days. In fact, this will have a chance, again, of just kind of drifting northward and meandering around for the next several days before finally it looks like this will probably get shoved off to the east and northeast. So on the GFS forecast here, we actually notice, again, this is the 850 millibar vorticity, so the spin in the atmosphere about 5,000 feet off the ground. So the higher colors here you get towards the 30s, 50s, those colors in the darker reds, those indicate higher cyclonic spin at your 5,000 foot level. And we notice that on the GFS forecast, we get a storm that quickly spins up and rapidly moves northeast. Now, there's a couple of things that could be going on here. Most notably, the GFS has a convective feedback problem, meaning that on the GFS, it develops too much convection, and that convection leads to a localized area of low pressure. And when that happens over tropical areas, you end up getting a phony tropical cyclone, hurricane, whatever, to end up forming. And we saw this, several times last year. We've already seen it this year a few times. So this is kind of one of those things. Now, we notice that the model does try to develop a tropical cyclone out here in the Atlantic as well, but I'm not really so sure that this is going to be a system anymore. I believe that this is probably going to be a phony system, but focusing on the East Pacific, you notice how close this ends up getting to land here, and we could be talking about some rather substantial impacts to portions of coastal Mexico over the next week to 10 days, as this is expected to be pretty close to land here. Now, if we look here at the upper level environment that the system could have, we notice that on the GFS forecast at least, that the system, again, it is moving in the opposite direction of what the shear would be. So this is going to be moving this way towards the northeast, and the shear profile is not really that favorable for a storm moving in that direction. But nonetheless, this does seem to intensify quite a bit on the model. And then eventually here by June 15th, on the model here, at least on the GFS, this actually has a pretty good upper level environment. Now we can see on the Euro forecast, the 0Z Euro run is slightly different. We notice that it takes a lot longer for development to occur. I mean, we still get a storm out here on June 15th, but we notice that it's much further away from coastal Mexico. It's not bundled up over here, and it's a lot less stronger. And that's, again, partially because the upper level environment is going to take a pretty long time for it to be any sort of favorable. There's a decent upper level anticyclone over here at this time. And one of the reasons why Atlantic development is not necessarily likely is because of all of this outflow dumping into the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. And that's likely to hinder development because there will be enhanced shear in that region. But eventually here, again, a new storm does end up forming closer to Mexico here, and we do get a storm that is closing in on the Baja, but I'm not really so sure that this is going to be something of significant concern over the next several days, but we'll continue to monitor that. Now, the European ensembles, just for good measure here, we move this out to about day 5, and we notice that on the European ensembles, there's not really a huge clustering of low pressures here. And each of these little red numbers here, this indicates where a potential tropical cyclone could be. And I'm just not seeing a huge clustering there. And it doesn't start till only about June 15th, where we start to get that clustering. Interestingly enough, that clustering is pretty close there to the portions of Central America and Mexico. So this will have to be watched for potential land impacts. Now, on the GFS ensembles here, we notice that a storm develops almost right off the bat, and a lot of members here clustered in by day 5 that are pretty close to portions of coastal Mexico. Now, again, we've seen time and time again where the European forecast is playing catch up to the GFS. We've seen that, but we've also seen times where, in the case with Alex, Tropical Storm Alex, a couple of days ago, we saw how that was playing catch up to the Euro solution. So there's a lot of different solutions that could go here, and the GFS ensembles are showing a potential storm in the East Pacific and also the Caribbean. I mean, and this is within a 5-day period, so this isn't necessarily bogus, but I'm just not so sure that we get something to develop out here in that particular time. Now, shifting gears to the future of what could be happening, this is the North American Multimodal Ensemble forecast here. And what this really goes to show is the precipitation anomaly, so departures from average. And you can see that, again, in the kind of the greens, cyans, blues, this is all upward departures, and then you have downward departures from normal here in the oranges and reds and yellows. Now, this is valid through August. So June, July, and August, this is valid for, okay? So this is valid through the 1st of August. And what we notice is that there's enhanced precipitation in the main development region and also out here in the Caribbean. And this is very important because Caribbean activity has been very minimal over the last several years. Really going back from 2017, 18, 19 development down in the Caribbean, Caribbean development has been minimal. We have had some notable storms like Hurricane Michael, etc., but overall, we have not had significant development. So watch how this plays out. We go through June, July, August, September. So this goes really, we're now going to be looking through August, September, and October. So this really kind of gets us into the time frame of the busiest months of the hurricane season. And what you notice is several higher end kind of rainfall patterns here. And what this kind of goes to maybe suggest is 2 areas of concentrated development. Maybe one off the southeast coast here, and of course out here in the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. So this could be something very interesting. This doesn't necessarily imply tracks for tropical cyclones, but it shows where we may have an overabundance of them. So that will be something interesting to watch here. And the sea surface temperature anomaly pattern at this time, again, shows that kind of very classical horseshoe shape here in the main development region, suggesting a positive Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation. So basically just a fancy way of saying that the overall pattern seems to be one that favors warmth in the main development region, cooling in the East Pacific, and very warm off of the Canadian Maritimes. This sets up a pretty big ridge of high pressure, forcing storms further westward and not easily recurving out to sea. So that will be something very interesting. Again, the pattern does support what could be a historically active 2022 Atlantic hurricane season. All right. With that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Mike O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again over the next several days.